My name is Kay Parr, and I'm humbly serve as the chair of the Democratic Party here in Parker County. Thank you for coming out today. And I'm taking pictures of all of you. I expect to see you in my office as volunteers to help us get out the vote to make sure that we get the change that's badly needed here in Texas. We have a few dignitaries here with us today that I would like to introduce. Carla Schoonover Porter from Palo Pinto County. She's the Democratic Party chair there. Say hi to Carla. Adrian Martin from Hood County. She's back over there. And also we have Rhonda Harris from Jack County. And please come out. We are all going to be working hard as boots on the ground, and so please come out and help us as we move forward. We're so fortunate today to have with us someone who cares about every Texan, whether they are from an urban area or whether they live in a small red county like ours. So, this is a man that needs no introduction. So I'm going to give you over to the next governor of Texas.
Okay, how's everybody doing? We may need some volume on this one, and I'm going to just get your help, Cynthia, with this wire. There we go. All right, I'm going to stand up here so that I can see everybody. Thank you all for coming out today. So grateful to be with you. To our chairwoman, Kay Parr, thank you for helping to organize this and bringing so many great people out. To Brenda Juergens, who is our all-time hero, absolutely tireless in reaching out to voters. Thank you for everything that you've done to connect us all today. We are so grateful that you came out and that you braved these Arctic temperatures that are blowing into Texas right now. Here we are almost in April, and we're having to wear jackets and sweaters, and I saw some poor guy who doesn't have a jacket on. He said, I thought this was going to be indoors, Beto, and it's not. Can you all still hear me? There we go. So thank you all for being here. It really, literally warms our heart to be with so many good people and to feel so much love and support from those in a county that is far too often overlooked by Democrats and taken for granted by Republicans, leaving people functionally unrepresented in their governments. And if we're going to get this right, we can't just talk about it. We've got to show up. We've got to walk that talk and make sure that we understand that everyone counts, everyone's important. No one can be written off, and no one can be taken for granted. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to keep my comments under about 15, 20 minutes max, and then we're going to turn the microphone over to you, and Cynthia, who's at the back, is going to take a microphone around, and we're going to take any questions, any comments, any suggestions, any ideas that you might have. But I want to begin with this. I could not help but notice that there were a few people who are still really excited about Donald Trump as we were driving in. Hey, and that's no, let's not boo them. Those are our fellow Americans. Those are our fellow Texans. They live in this community. Their kids go to the same schools that your kids go to. We worship in the same churches or temples, or choose not to worship at all, whatever that is, but we're together, right? And we're at a time where this state and this country has never been more divided or fractured or polarized, at least not in our lifetimes, right? You'd have to go back to maybe the 1860s to find a time where we were this badly divided. And we've got to find ways and reasons and issues that can bring us together, because it's the only way that it's going to work. It cannot be our way or the highway. When we win this race, right, there's a good chance that we're going to be working with a Republican majority legislature. And I cannot come back to you at a meeting like this one and say, folks, look, I talked about all these great things we were going to do. I made all these promises, but I wasn't able to deliver because these stinking Republicans, they stood in our way and they just wouldn't move. And so just keep reelecting me, and one of these days we're going to get something done. No, we've got to get this done right now. We've got to find that common ground. We've got to look for consensus. And look, I know this is a four-letter word for many people in politics today, but we also have to be open to compromise, right? So let me tell you this. The three things that define this campaign, the three things that we want to do together when we elect me governor as this state, are things that will bring Texans together. It's the issues that you're not going to find much argument from Republicans or independents or Democrats on. Let me give you an example. Issue number one is jobs. We want to make sure that the best jobs in America are created right here in the state of Texas. And anyone working full-time doesn't work a second or a third job, isn't dependent upon public assistance, isn't sleeping in a shelter or on the side of the road, as we know is the case with far too many of our fellow Texans, including those veterans who serve this country right now. So how are we going to do that? Well, what if we invested in the higher education of any young person or any older person who's lost their job or is returning to the workforce, so they can go to Weatherford College, get that associate's degree, that skill training, so they are competitive for those living wage, high-paying, high-value, high-skill jobs. I'd love to see that right here in Parker County. Or yesterday we were in an IBEW training center. And here we were in Tarrant County, meeting with these apprentices who are in a 5-year program, after which they're going to be earning $60,000, and then moving on up, $70,000, $80,000. You're a master foreman as an electrician. You're making $130,000, $140,000 right here in the state of Texas. You're not working a second or third job. You're creating more jobs for our fellow Texans. Now, that's not something that Democrats believe in or Republicans believe in. Just as Texans, we believe that there should be that opportunity to work that living wage job that gives you purpose and function in your life. I was talking to one of the young apprentices, and he said, "Hey, Beto, you keep talking about jobs. This is a career for me. This is a calling. When I get up in the morning, I am so damn excited to go out onto that job site and then come here to this training center to get better and better at what I do." I love that. So issue number one, jobs. Issue number two, we today do not have the best system of public education in America. In fact, when you compare us to California or Florida or North Carolina, New York, Illinois, any one of our peer states, over the last 7 years that Greg Abbott has been governor, they have been doing better while we have been doing worse. Now, that's not an indictment on our kids or their parents, nor those school teachers who too often are working that second or third job to make ends meet. In Parker County, the average teacher is underpaid by about $7,500 against the national average for teachers. And that means that those classroom instructors, those counselors, those librarians, the people who make public education possible have a reason to maybe leave that profession after 2 years of a pandemic and a recession and a governor who's constantly attacking them based on what they're trying to teach in the classroom, or asking them to turn in the parents of transgender students who might be in front of them. It is no wonder that we're losing 1/3 of Texas school teachers within the first 5 years that they join the profession. What if instead of doing all that, we paid these teachers enough so they never work a second job? We show them the respect that they deserve. We cancel the STAR test this year so there's no more high stakes, high pressure in their lives. And we make sure that we treat them as the professionals that they are, able to make the decisions that they need to in the classroom. Look, they didn't do it for the money or the fame or the glory. They answered the call. They were responding to the need to deliver for these kids and unlock a lifelong love of learning within them. Let's allow them to do that. That's how Texas goes from nearly dead last in performance in so many of these categories, like having 7 out of 10 fourth graders unable to read at grade level, to becoming the best in the nation in public education. We can get behind that, right? That makes sense. And then this one, and again, this is one I've heard from Republicans and Democrats alike. They can all get behind it. What if we expanded Medicaid in the state of Texas so more people could see a doctor, fill a prescription? Hey, Cynthia, I don't know if we can do anything with the sound. Fill a prescription, take their child to a therapist in a state where the largest provider of mental health care services right now is the county jail system, where you've got people with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and clinical depression getting arrested on purpose far too often to be taken to the one place that they don't have insurance, where they're guaranteed the care that they would otherwise be denied. That is so immoral. It is so expensive against the alternative of just taking yes for an answer, the 90 cents on the dollar that the federal government will pay if we will take Medicaid expansion. And the kicker, Kay Parr said, please, Beto, make sure you talk about property taxes when you come to Parker County today. The kicker on this is when we take that $10 billion a year additional and bring it into our communities from the federal government, you are no longer paying for uncompensated care at your public hospitals through your property tax bill. We will lower property taxes in Texas as a result. And those three things, that's it. When you leave this and your spouse or your kids or your parents or your colleagues or your classmates say, what is this Beto guy all about? I hear these ads from Abbott trying to scare me about him. He's coming to turn our state into Venezuela. I don't know how you do that, by the way, but I'm not interested. You say, look, he talked about great jobs, world-class schools, and the ability to see a doctor and just be healthy enough and well enough to live to your full potential. That's it. And for those of you who are willing to volunteer for us and to knock on doors and to reach out to those voters, that's the message that I want you to share. We don't need any more division, any more culture wars, any more being at each other's throats or pitted against one another right now. This campaign has to be about all Texans. Republicans are welcome. Independents, we want you here as well. And Democrats, we got to get after it and go do it. But if we're going to get this state on the right track and do these three things, we've got to get past the man who's in this position of power right now and is abusing it to harm our fellow Texans. And we've got to ask ourselves how much better we would be if we were able to make this change. Imagine if, instead of attacking those transgender kids and their families who are navigating some really tough issues in their lives, we instead focused on child protective services and the 30,000 foster kids in this state who are being abused and trafficked in state care. 23 of them lost their lives in state care over the last 2 years. Hundreds have been trafficked for sex. Literally, their bodies rented out to other people while they were in our custody and care in the state of Texas. And this is not a new problem. For the last 6 years, they've been warning the governor that kids come out more damaged from that system than when they first went in. And after 6 years, the judge who's been working on this issue says it has gone from bad to worse. We will be judged by how we treat the most vulnerable, the least defendable among us, these young kids who are in harm's way right now. As governor, I'm going to make sure that they are a priority. Imagine if instead of attacking women and preventing them from making their own decisions about their own bodies and putting a $10,000 bounty on the back of anybody who assists any woman, we guaranteed in Texas that every woman makes her own decisions about her own future and her own health care and her own body. Imagine if instead of allowing the power grid to fail when the temperature drops and literally not being able to keep the lights on in the energy capital of the world and taking millions of dollars of campaign contributions from the energy CEOs who made billions of dollars in illegal profits last February, what if we instead of that fixed the grid and instead of asking you to pay higher utility bills, which everyone is right now in Texas, we call that the Abbott tax because you're footing the bill for what those billionaires stole from us. What if we fixed the grid? What if we connected ERCOT to the national grid so we could draw down power whenever we needed it and lowered your utility bills in the bargain? We can do that, but we've got to get past this moment. And this is what I'm going to close with. This is not up to me. It's not up to the Democratic Party. This one is on all of us. And for those of you who are tempted to doubt or to even despair, if we listen too much to the pundits and the prognosticators and even some members of the press who say, hey, this is unwinnable, they can't do it. The future, as our honorary fellow Texan Joe Strummer of the Clash said, is unwritten. It is up to us to determine our future, our fortune, and our fate. And it's not just coming out to events like this one. It's not just what we share on social media. It is connecting with the people in Parker County, face to face, eyeball to eyeball, showing up at their door and having this conversation from your own heart and in your own words, and you define what is possible right here. In 2018, we won together 9,955 votes, más o menos, here in Parker County. Since then, there are almost 10,000 new voters who've come to this county or aged into the rolls or have been naturalized right here in Weatherford or other parts of Parker County. In other words, these voters, primarily young, and we saw a 500% increase in young voters in 2018. These young voters, if we will go out there and listen to them first, and then talk to them about what we can do, and then connect the dots on how voting in this election produces the change that we want, we could double our vote performance here in Parker County. Are you all willing to help me to do that? Well, if you have not signed up already, we've got volunteers who are around who will sign you up to become one of those volunteers yourself, to knock on those doors and to make that difference. And you can always go to Beto for Texas to sign up there or to learn more about what we're doing. With that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Cynthia and over to you, and then we'll take your questions.
All right, if you have a question,
thank you everybody for coming out.
And I will come to you. Right over here.
I'll repeat the question, by the way, for anyone who doesn't hear it.
So I know that one of the places where kids are safest is when they're in school. A lot of times we're the ones that can advocate for them, identify issues, things like that. And I'm really concerned that in the state of Texas, when it comes to homeschooling, there's absolutely no regulation. And it really worries me because I know that a lot of times these parents, I know that a lot of times there are parents that are not really confusing, but I also know that a lot of parents want these kids under the wire, under the radar. Do you have any intention of creating regulations so that we know, number one, where these kids getting caught, and that there's somebody checking in on them to make sure that they're not being abused?
Great. So the question was about homeschooling and about public education and about standards and oversight and accountability. And listen, I want to learn as much as I can from those who are homeschooling their kids right now about how we can make it better, make sure that those kids are having a great experience. But even more than that, I want to make sure that our public schools are the destination of choice for parents who do have a choice, who could homeschool, who could send their kid to a private school. And I want to make sure they are the best possible option for kids who have no choice, whose parents couldn't afford private schools, or who live in a rural county where the public school is the only option. That's why I want to make sure as governor that we invest in schools. And listen, the technology, the infrastructure, the building, all that stuff is important, but it pales in comparison to the importance of that teacher and instructor and that educator who's in the classroom with those kids. They are like gold to the state of Texas, and we've got to treat them that way. And I'm confident if we do, and if we listen to them, and if we follow their lead, we're going to improve public education in the state of Texas, and that will be the destination of choice for almost every parent. Ms. Cano.
First of all, anybody that's a Clash fan is a fan. So,
Awesome, thank you.
that was really cool. This is a diverse crowd, and I have to say, I think a lot of us are looking for a torchbearer of compassion, especially given the cruelty in American politics now. So my question on behalf of everybody here is, how can we help you revitalize the system with empathy again?
I love this question. Thank you so much. Listen, you all lead on this by example. We know there's some folks who may disagree with us, who may not vote for me, who may not see eye to eye with us on the policy issues. Some of them are here right now, and I love that they're here. The fact that we can still pull this off 245 years into the experiment, this is the exception on planet Earth right now. And we can see that in Ukraine, as autocracy tries to invade democracy and to destroy it. We know that over the course of world history, that democracy, the ability to freely choose those who will represent us, to have a say in the course and direction that your community, your state, your country takes, it flourished for a little while 2,500 years ago and then was extinguished from the planet until it reemerged here in the United States of America. Deeply imperfectly at first, but it had been getting better. It had been expanding, it had been enlarging, it had been representing and reflecting more of our Americans year by year, decade by decade. Certainly after our fellow Texan LBJ signed the Voting Rights Act into law in 1965, but for the first time since then, this window of opportunity, this ability to demonstrate compassion through our democracy and peacefully listen to one another, engage in civil debate and dialogue, and then find the best possible solution and never allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good. We stand a good chance of losing that right now. And listen, it's certainly the insurrection attempt last year, but it's also what's taking place in Texas right now. Tens of thousands of mail ballots rejected by this state as we have forced people to match the ID with which they used to register to vote in the first place with the one that they want to use to vote right now. One of those 95-year-old World War II veterans who put his life on the line for this democracy, fighting fascism half a world away, was rejected 3 times in his attempt to vote in this state, in the very democracy that he made possible. So democracy is voting rights. Democracy is the ability to register. Democracy is the ability to freely choose those who will serve and represent you in positions of public trust. But democracy is also what this gentleman is talking about right now. The ability to gather in meetings like these and be kind enough to one another and to see things from somebody else's perspective that we might not otherwise have understood, or to understand some of the things that we may be taking for granted right now. My ability to see a doctor, or to be there for my kids who are in the public ed system right now, or to advocate in a way that I have the freedom to do, others may not. And if we listen to them and empathize with them and show compassion, they're going to do better. And when they do better, we all do better. I'm a big fan of when we all do better, we all do better. And that's going to be the root of what we do in this administration. Thanks for asking the question.
All right,
Appreciate
here's
it.
our next question right over here.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm a retired teacher. My daughter is currently teaching, and I just wanted to thank you so much for shining a light on education in Texas, because it's in crisis and we have so many things that we need to be working on. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank both of you for what you do. One of the saddest things that we can hear as we're traveling the state of Texas is teachers who tell us that they're discouraging their kids from entering the profession. Retired teachers who remind us that they haven't had a cost of living adjustment since the year 2004. Imagine how much prices have gone up since 2004, even just in this last year. And these retired teachers who devoted themselves to us,